What is consciousness? The live stream of consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question that has captivated human minds for centuries. Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts. Don't miss a moment. Expand your awareness and tap into the boundless potential that resides within you. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness.
Yes, welcome to the live stream of consciousness. Welcome once again. I'm Michael Zinn. This is the live stream of consciousness. It is Thursday. And I'm in my happy place, and you're here with me. I was listening to the VO, and I realized how serious Jesse makes it sound. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness. We're on a quest, and we're not really on a quest. We just are, and that's what I like to do. I like to be, especially here at the live stream of consciousness with all my lovely friends. I see Tim is out there. What's up, Tim? I see Ninja Kitty is out there. What is up, my people who are always here waiting with open arms? It is our happy place. Absolutely. So I'm super excited tonight. The last couple of weeks have been pretty interesting for me. Probably about a month ago, I saw a new button in the Streamyard interface where I'm broadcasting from. And I'm actually also thinking about doing this. Let me just change something here. I think it's in layouts. It is here. I notice some people don't usually, when they're in the single layout, they put the full screen. So I'm going to try this. This feels a little roomier here. So, but anyway, a new button showed up on Streamyard, and it was called Find a Guest. And I clicked on the button. It brought me to this new software called Collab, and people who are guests looking for podcasts can sign up and put a profile, and people who are podcasts looking for guests can sign up and put a profile, and it's like a little mini social media site for podcasters. But I figured I would try it, and immediately I found two different podcasts that seemed of interest to me that were very responsive in the messages. The Q for You podcast, which is out of Ohio and Oklahoma, and it's got two hosts, and then the Truelife Podcast, which is out of Hawaii, which is my favorite place in the world. And it has one host, and he is going to be my guest tonight. I'm super excited. He is on his own new journey. We were just talking about how he's kind of moving into this new place and exploring all these things. Plant medicine is one of the things he talks a lot about, which I'm going to kind of dive into his mind about. And I just love his show and his personality, and I'm excited to talk to him. So I just want to get that going. So I'm going to welcome him to the show, and here he is, George Monty. What's happening, George?
Michael Zen, thank you so much for having me here today. I am a fan of your podcast, and I think you have such an incredible audience, from Ninja Kitty to Tim, everybody out there. I see them in the chat, and they got like a great attitude. And I, too, am stoked to be here, man. Thank you very much for inviting me on. You've had some awesome guests, and I'm happy to be one of them, man. Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Leela is, I think this is the first live stream that I'm doing with my new haircut.
Yeah, fresh.
It's been a busy week. I actually did 3 streams this week, and it's only the 4th day of the week. This is my 4th stream this week. I did the Fool's Journey on Monday, which I always do with Brian Lahr, who's an amazing artist and wizard and tarot master. Tuesday, I do a show occasionally called The Moment. That was when I was starting the live stream, and I was thinking about kind of breaking away from Jesse and doing my own thing. The Moment was, I just loved the idea of creating a moment through intention, and that moment would be the broadcast, and it would just be about that idea. And it still lives. I still do The Moment every once in a while. I did have Tommy Chong on The Moment. That was awesome. But a good friend of mine, William Conway, who is a up and coming comedian, and now he's gotten into music. He's a singer. Contacted me, and he said he has a great guest for the show, perfect for The Moment. So I said, okay, let's do it. So I did that, and then yesterday we did a mega 2-hour collective podcast. Crossing the Streams was the first time we actually, I guess, gave it a name, because we had been chatting. And it was great. It was just 2 hours. I was literally exhausted. My brain was fried at the end of that. But it was a lot of fun. And here we are. I don't even remember what started me talking about this week. It's just been such a crazy week. And I'm just so happy to be here at my place with you, because your energy is so phenomenal. And I love the way you speak on screen. I feel like it's so engaging. I mean, I know for me, I resonate with it. I know we haven't really had a chance to talk one-on-one.
Sure.
We've been talking with other people. So I'm excited to meet you and talk to you. I do have to get some business out of the way.
Handle it, man. Handle it.
I keep calling it business, but it's the fun. It's the fun of the show. It's the intro to the show. It's the core of the show. And that is to get a nice, good soundbite of George Monty telling me, what is consciousness?
It's a great question. And it's one of those questions that no matter what answer I give, it won't do it right, because it's almost inevitable. But I took some time to think about it, and I'm going to go with something along these lines.
Nice.
To me, my definition, the idea of consciousness is, it's the process of painting a limitless canvas of existence with the colors of experience and understanding.
Ooh.
And if I were to just distill that down a little bit further, I would say that the idea of consciousness, at least for me, and this comes from a long, beautiful, winding road relationship with psychedelics, and it's understanding that everything you see in someone else is a mirror image of yourself. And like it's just this weird fractal environment. How's that for an answer?
I love that answer. I definitely love that answer. You hit on so many things that have become clear to me over the last couple of years that are kind of very abstract concepts, but when you experience them, you understand them, and you can't really describe them other than the simple things that you just said. So seeing your reflection in others, that's something that's truly humbling, and you do get a sense of understanding unconditional love through that experience. That's one thing. And then what was the other thing you said? Hold on a second. I'm having coffee because I had such a day. Instead of my water, I'm having coffee. What was the other thing you said? Do you remember?
I think the process of painting a limitless canvas.
Well, that was the beginning. No, the last two things that you just said. You said, you talked about seeing a reflection of yourself and everybody. And then there was another thing that was also very relevant to what's been going on with me. But I forget what it was.
Well, I think it speaks volumes when you see the world as a reflection of yourself, because it's humorous, it's humbling, it's beautiful, and it's tragic, because you are all those things. And it's a real easy way to put yourself in check or understand the emotions you're feeling, is just to take a look around at your environment and see how the people are reacting, because that's who you are at that point in time. If someone's upset, probably should remind you of something that you're doing. I'm not saying you're responsible for that, but if someone is upset about something, take time to reflect on what it is they're upset about. I bet you could find something in your life that echoes that or rhymes with that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That makes 1,000,000% sense. And I'm going to write it down. I've been getting in the habit of writing things down on this little pad so I don't forget them to talk about them. And I'm just going to write down ShopRite because it's an experience I had in ShopRite. But before I want to talk about that, I want to ask you the other question, which is the question on the live stream of consciousness. And that is to ask you to share a story or a moment that you can remember where you realized, okay, I was taught that the world is this three-dimensional place that you come into existence, and you have a mother and a father, and you have to get a job and all of these things. When did you realize there was way more than that?
Well, I feel as if it's sort of like when you throw that pebble in the pond and all those rings go out. So it's like this ongoing process. But I'll tell you the first time I noticed it, which led to the actual breaking of the world to me. The first time I noticed it was the first time I took mushrooms, like at 16. My friend and I went to this laser show, and we split like an eighth or something like that. So it was just enough to get like some visuals going on.
Mhm.
But I'll never forget, after my friend left and I was just sitting in my house staring at the ceiling, and like all that popcorn ceiling things were kind of moving a little bit. But I
Mhm.
had this overwhelming feeling of understanding. And for a moment, a fleeting glimpse, everything made sense to me for the first time in my life. I can't tell you exactly how it happened, but it was that feeling of like, oh, there's actually a plan to this. And it was that seed that was planted in me that night that kept me
Mhm.
moving forward.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
things did not really begin to, I never became the guy I was until 2011 when my son died. And that's
Mhm.
when the world cracked around me. Something in me died and it stayed dead for a long time.
Mhm.
It's sort of like for any people who's ever pulled a giant stump out of like their yard, there's this giant hole, right? And that hole stays there for a long time.
Wow,
Some people,
great analogy.
some people try to fill it with concrete. Some people put bricks over it. Some people just put their garden stuff in there. Some people put like their waste in there, whatever. But it's the same thing. When something you love dies, there's a giant hole in there. But death is something that all of us must learn to deal with.
Mhm.
Death is the place where new seeds can be planted. If you think about it, things have to die in order for new things to be born.
Mhm. Mhm.
So for me, when my son died, I spent a lot of years in anger. My relationships began to crack around me,
Mhm.
and it took some time to figure things out. But I was able to use psychedelics. I was able to harness this idea of what I thought consciousness was and rebuild something. And sure enough, a few years go by and something began to grow in that hole. And it was relationship with my son began to blossom in ways that I didn't think was possible with someone who has died before. Anybody
Mhm.
who's lost anybody knows that. Like sometimes your relationship with people gets better after they die. Kind of a
Mhm.
weird thing to think about, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that was the cracking of the egg for me. The beginning of seeing that the world is not what it seems, but it's something that you can manipulate. It's something that you have a huge part in that people really don't thoroughly take the courage to mold around them. That's what I got. What do you think?
Dude, I love it. What an amazing perspective in death, what death is. I had no idea about that about you. We're learning about each other, and again, of course, I'm sorry about that, but I
Thank you.
love meeting people like you who can have such a deep understanding and connection to that experience. You know what I mean? Because that is a traumatic experience, for anybody. And I just want to say hello to Rangi Marie from Brisbane, Queensland. I love the international flavor of the show all across the globe. I love that. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness. I love having you here. If you do subscribe, I don't tell you to, but if you do, I have a little bell over here that I will ring physically. Just tell me in the comments that you've subscribed, and we can connect that way. You can effectively move something in another place just by subscribing. I will ring that bell.
That's
Anyway,
awesome. Shout out to Australia. My sister went to University of Wollongong, so shout out to Australia out there.
Yes. Nice. I love that. But so back to this concept of dealing with death. I think that's really great. And I'm going to really talk to you about psychedelics and your
Let's do
experience,
it. I love
because I've dabbled, I've taken psychedelics.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever had a super intentional experience with it. I think it was in college, and it was just kind of, hey man, this is groovy. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was nowhere near understanding anything about spirituality. And I say that meaning that I certainly had my connection to spirituality.
Sure.
But I didn't know what that was, because I had been playing in bands and doing things that I loved, and looking back, once I understand channeling I'm like, oh wow, I was channeling in those moments. I was connecting to source. I really got to see my own spiritual nature through time. Once I understood that, I think that's a really cool aspect of spiritual journey in general. And again, I'm not a big fan of that phrase, because I think it's a great phrase, hey, we're all on a spiritual journey, but it's really, that word is life, right? Well, I mean, we're all living, and that's what living is. Living is the spiritual journey, is living, and actually the spiritual journey is living well. I would say.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just kind of living, you may not be on that spiritual journey. You can exist without it for sure.
Yeah.
But I love that. Okay, so let's talk about psychedelics. You said your first experience was at 16. And was it often when you were young, or did you get into it later intentionally, or tell us more? I mean, how did that experience go from there?
Well, for me, so my family I always say that my family put the fun in dysfunction. And I think that a lot of people listening to this, we all have friends, and if we're being honest with ourselves, we all got a few things we could work on. You know what I mean? We all got some things we could work on.
Sure.
And in my family, my mom was the oldest of 8. My dad was bipolar. And when I look back at some of the people in my family on my mom's side, there was no real autism back then, or there was no spectrum back then. But when I look back and see some of the most influential people in my life, I'm like, these people were always different. But back then it was just like, oh, they're different. And so for me, I remember my parents got divorced when I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or something like that. And so it was a bit chaotic. But the one thing that I really loved about psychedelics was that it allowed me to begin getting comfortable with chaos. And that just like it has it's still to this day, it's almost poetic to me. The familiarity of chaos and being okay with it. Because for so many people in the world, when you get a little bit out of the lines, oh, I get a little tensed up. I don't know if I can handle it. But for me, it was like, oh, I'm home. Yeah, there's 20 things going on. I love it. I can pay attention to that one, not that one. And so I think that speaks volumes to the way that I think and the way I interact with psychedelics. It made me be okay with who I am. I know that the way I think is different. I know the way that my dad thinks, my mom thinks was different. And I knew growing up, people thought I was a little off, but it was the first time I really felt at home. And so for me, that began the relationship with psychedelics. And I think that that's why I continue to do them and explore them. In the beginning, it was much like a first date is a time to get to know somebody, to see if you like them.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun, right? Like, ooh, I like this person. Should I try to kiss them? It's too early. Don't do that. And you're on your best behavior.
Right,
and I
right.
honestly think that psychedelics are like that. I think that they have their own intention behind them.
Right.
Maybe it's your intention with them, but you build a relationship with them. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting to me because, I definitely I haven't really done a lot of psychedelics recently. In my older age, I did. Everybody's familiar with the old host of the show, Jesse Blaze. We did mushrooms one night, and we went out and just kind of took a walk and
awesome.
laid in the grass at the end of the block by the water, and I didn't have like a hallucinogenic experience, but I felt really amazing. I definitely.
Wait, what would you consider a hallucinogenic experience?
Having thoughts that become kind of very visual, or thoughts that kind of become very engaging. You know what I mean? Like my thoughts start talking to me, and it's like all of a sudden I just go very deep in my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like going inward. I would say to the point where you kind of lose where you are. You know what I mean? You're physically sitting in this chair, but you're not mentally in that chair. You know what I mean? You go somewhere else. It's like, I mean, I would liken it to a dream state. You know what I mean? I think I certainly have felt through meditation and through dreams similar experiences. You know what I mean? Kind of reaching those realms. I mean, I think it's all related. I think, obviously physically when you're taking mushrooms, you're not going somewhere else. So it all is happening in here, which again, same thing with dreams and meditation and other, substances, you know what I mean?
I do.
So
I think heightened states of awareness, be it through breath work, be it in a dream, be it after a workout or isolation, like all these things can put us into a heightened state of awareness. Sometimes you do it through psychedelics, but I'm not saying you can't have a psychedelic experience being in an isolation tank. Or how about breaking up from someone you love? Everybody's been through that before, and you're like, oh man, look at this. Jesus Christ. What am I fucking doing? I can't believe I did that, or like, I can't, but good thing that person's gone. Whatever it is that you feel, it's different. It's a different state of awareness. And it's in those states that you can begin to see the world differently. And just like any environment, if you explore that environment, you can see new things. If you and I go for a walk in the woods one time, we may not notice that there's a bright red rock where a big yellow frog lives. But if we walk that path all the time, we might make friends with that frog. We might see that frog as a family.
Right.
And it's the same thing in heightened states of awareness. When you become comfortable in that environment, you can begin noticing things that you've never noticed before, but have always been there. And that's what I think the psychedelics do for some people. Some people do it through religion. Some people do it through relationships, but it's those heightened states of awareness. And I think that is the environment that's so intoxicating for me and so many other people that have found psychedelics to be a home. And it's really doing incredible things for people with PTSD or family disorders, or, so I guess that was why I wanted to ask what your opinion of heightened states of awareness were.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to just also acknowledge Tim is one of our viewers. He's been here since the beginning, and he was regarding you losing your son. He just had a son. So
congratulations, brother.
Yeah, he amazing boy. We actually did his gender reveal on the show.
What?
He wasn't even born yet, so really good. But he said he can't imagine how hard that is to deal with, and I don't think anybody can. But again, I think when somebody meets you and they get to know you and your personality, and they're enchanted by your energy, right? And then you say, "Oh, by the way, I lost my son." It's really powerful, because wow, somebody can actually be happy after that. You know what I mean? People don't realize, that you can. And not to take a tangent, but I'm good friends with this woman who started a group when her son died from an overdose. And she started a bereavement group. And this group of people, I mean, literally, I try to get people to experience just being with them, because the energy and the love and the joy is so palpable when you're hanging out with them, and you're just like, how can this be? All of these people have lost like the most precious thing to them, but they all have joined together. They all look at it like their angels are looking down at them. They all kind of have joined in this mourning and in this perspective of the energy and where it is, right? And it's like a group meditation. There's just so much more power in it. And again, it's just so inspirational. Other than, there are so many people goes, if there's a God, then why do kids die? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, wait a second, that's why. Because there is a God, like, almost, right? It's like some people need those experiences, or can use those experiences to then go on and help other people. I mean,
that's it. That's really well said. And I think that for anybody, it's a giant, exclusive, incredible club, and I hope nobody else ever joins it. But if you do, I'll be the first person to welcome you with open arms and tell you I love you. And you do. Everyone goes through this. And I got good news and bad news. If you haven't gone through the death of someone you love with all of your heart, that's good news. But the bad news is you're going to. And here's some more good news. The good news is that the pain becomes something you can embrace. And I hope that people understand this. I have learned, my son taught me in passing, that the purpose of tragedy is because there's something in this world that thinks you're strong enough and beautiful enough and courageous enough to not only go through it, but make it through and then turn around and hand back somebody and pull them up. That's the purpose of tragedy, I think, is like, guess what? Imagine something more beautiful than you could possibly imagine looking down at you and being like, this is going to hurt. But I love you and you're strong enough to get through it. And when you do, I want you to go help these other people, because that's why you're here. That's why we're all here. And these horrible things happen to us. They shouldn't happen to anybody, but they do. And when they do happen, you will find the courage to do it. And there's this weird thing that happens to you after you begin the grieving process. And psychedelics can really help this, or a group of bereavement can help it, whatever method you take. And that what happens is that you gain this incredible power. And it's almost intoxicating. And in some ways, when I look back at the biblical scriptures and I think about Abraham, or I think about the different types of ceremonies that the Indians do, or it's in all the sacred texts about a father losing a son or a mother losing a son. There's something that happens in that sacrifice. And for me, like, I got to have every single kid I see now, I see my son. That's such a gift. Like every kid I see, like that's my kid. Cool. That's my daughter. That's my son.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And beyond that particular beautiful thing that can happen to you is this idea that you are now have the scales ripped from your eyes and you can see it happening to other people. An example of that is someone who's been in an abusive relationship. They can now see an abusive relationship more than anybody else because they've been there. If you've lost somebody, you have this weird foresight where you can sense it in somebody else. And that's a gift. If you sense that in somebody, you should walk over to them and just hit them on the back and be like, you know what? I know what you're going through, man. I love you. Just say something like that, but acknowledge the feeling that you feel for them. And that's the gift, man. It's weird and it's crazy, but it's so beautiful too. And I hope people choose to embrace it.
Yeah. No, me too. And again, it's so weird, dude, because I listen to you and you have this energy of like, I want to say like a pastor almost, like, but like a good pastor that you like, and you walk away going like, wow, what a great, what does the pastor give you? I forgot what the word is. What is the ceremony?
Like
the
a
pastor,
like faith, maybe.
There's a word. There's a word for this, not a sermon. Like maybe sermon's the word. Their sermon or their speech. Whatever it is that their daily diatribe that they they try to. I mean, literally, like a good pastor is exactly that, a motivational speaker, right? Who's just like a sermon. Yeah, Tim saying sermon.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
Yeah, but it's like, there's kind of a stigma attached to that, right? Like
Absolutely.
a pastor and like, oh my God, he's telling us what to do and he's giving us the word of God, but it's such a refreshing feeling.
It's spiritual, right?
Yeah,
it's spirituality, man.
It's really spiritual. Yeah, it really is spiritual. I'm so happy I met you. I want to learn so much from like just your leadership. And I got to tell you, thank you so much. You said something the other day, just subtly, I was talking to someone, and you're like, you're good at it. And I was just like, wow, like, this guy's good at it and he thinks I'm good at it. So I was like, that's pretty cool. And you know what? And I'll be honest, and I have said it on the show. Sure. I never expected to be here doing this. I started it because Jesse Blaze asked me to be his co-host. And I was just brave because he's so freaking charismatic that I was just like, if he's there, I'll be fine. People will be paying attention to him. But I loved it so much, and I actually got people, who sent me emails and saying, this is how you affected me. And I was like, I guess I'm doing the right thing. This is pretty cool. And again, I started to realize all of the different layers of it, which is like, one, it's going to put me in the path of people like you. And now we're friends and we're going to talk and grow together. And like my experience on this planet has just magnified. You know what I mean? It's amazing. And so thank you for crossing my path and coming into my life. What else can we talk about with psychedelics? So I guess, I have been very curious. And again, this goes back to related to the Snyders, Jesse and his whole entire family. I don't know if you know Dee Snider, obviously the Twisted Sister, and who is straight edge, and he doesn't drink, he doesn't do any drugs. However, his son Cody, I think, was the one who started it. He was diagnosed his whole life as ADD and all of these things, and put on these medications that had side effects. He was overweight. He was, all of the lethargic, all of these crazy things. So for years and years, he was trying to figure it out, and finally he got himself all of the medication, and he found ayahuasca. And he went to Peru. He came back from Peru. The experience is amazing. It's on the live stream of the Truelife Podcast. It's on the live stream of consciousness episode with Cody. He tells us this amazing story of the you got to watch it because it is amazing. But he came back, and his mom and his family was just like, wow, you're different. Something is different, and in a great way. And little by little, the whole family ended up going to Peru. The whole family now is a plant medicine advocate family. Cody started doing a podcast called Awakened Underground, which was the #1 spiritual podcast of the year in like Billboard or whoever determines that. And the stories are just amazing. So I became intrigued about ayahuasca. I'm imagining you have experience with it. I haven't personally felt called to it. So in other words, like I'm like, ooh, I want to do it. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, but I feel like it's got to be a much more serious decision than that. You know what I mean? I feel like you've got to be called to it. I know that you have to actually like diet a certain way for a couple of days. So there's like a commitment to doing ayahuasca. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that? I mean, I know you most likely advocated. I see a lot of times you're like, everybody should be doing mushrooms every day. Mushrooms for breakfast. You know what I mean? And I get that, but you know, it's a little scary, I think, for people who don't do it. So there you go. Here's your step up to the plate and tell me, you know, what your thoughts are on plant medicine. And again, before you start, I do know one of the things that I appreciate is you agree, like, it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Some people it really talks to them, and some people it pushes them away.
Yeah, it's very true. And you know, you should listen to your body, listen to your heart, and do what you think is right. Obviously, if you have any sort of potential mental issues or you're worried about something, you should definitely seek some clarity with a medical professional, because I'm definitely not that. That being said, my experience with ayahuasca is minimal in that I believe similar to you. I think that there should be a path to do it that you're called on. And the path for me, like I grow it. There's multiple ways to make ayahuasca, but the traditional way is to combine 2 plants. One is the Banisterius caapi, of which there's a couple different kind of vines. And then there is another plant that goes with it that's from the coffee family called it's like a Psychotropia viridis, and that plant has the DMT in it, and the vine has a MAO inhibitor, so it allows the DMT to get into your body without being pushed away through the bloodstream and the urine. So for me, like I have read about it, I find it incredibly seductive and beautiful. However, I had decided that the only way I'm going to do it is if I can make it, because I don't want to buy it from anybody. I'm not in a position where I can go to Peru, or I haven't been invited to go see or sit with it, or haven't really been called in that fashion. So I, on my birthday every year, attempt to make it. And so for the last 2 years, now for those people that don't know, when you take ayahuasca, there's a purging involved, and it's usually coming out from all sides of you. I know it's kind of gross, but that's, you know, it's part of the purging of the spirit. It's part of the purging for your family. It's part of getting rid of the toxicities in your body. And so for me, when I made the ayahuasca, I didn't have any problem purging. I got that part right. However, there was none of a lot of the big, you know, psychedelics that came with it. So the way in which I made it was off. So I got enough of the vine in me to purge, but not enough for the psychedelic effects. That's been my relationship with ayahuasca.
Okay.
I do speak with Dr. Jessica Rochester for anybody who's interested in thinking or learning about ayahuasca. She is the Mahadrina of a Santo Daime church, which is one of the oldest practicing traditions in the world of ayahuasca. I would invite everybody to check out her books called Ayahuasca Awakenings, where she goes deep into the Icaros and goes deep into the world of ayahuasca, what it means for her, what it means how she was trained. So that's what I know there. When it comes to mushrooms, that has been the relationship with psychedelics that I speak to the most, because I've built a pretty good relationship with them, and I understand that what my body's like with them. And for those that may not know, when you ingest a small amount, a lot of times you'll hear words like microdose throwing around. A microdose is something usually below 1/2 gram, and it's usually enough to turn the lights on. And what I mean by that is colors are brighter, sounds seem to be a little bit more crisper. You may walk around with a little half smug smile on your face. Not quite sure what you're so happy about, but you sure are. You know, and it's a great way that people have really been changing their aspect on life. It's sort of like a very vibrant cup of coffee. When you get above that dose of a microdose, I call it like a museum dose. A museum dose is somewhere between, I don't know, maybe under 2 grams. You know, you probably shouldn't be driving, but if you did, you'd probably be okay. You know, and you're you know what I mean? I'm not advocating people do that.
Right.
I want them to have an idea of what the dosages are.
Right.
So, and it's fun.
This is good information for me.
Yeah. And so a museum dose is something that you can go on a date with. You know, it might be fun to experience a thrill ride with someone you love under a low dose of mushrooms. It might be fun to do it on a bigger dose, but for people watching, probably start with a lower dose. People go to festivals and sometimes they'll have like a museum dose. Once you get above that dosage, you know, then things begin. That's when the weird music starts playing. You know what I mean by that? Like all of a sudden, like, did I hear that? What was that over there?
Yeah.
The walls start breathing.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Are we at a hero's dose? Is that a hero's dose?
The five tried grams in silent darkness is what Terrence McKenna called the heroic dose.
I got you. Okay,
So,
heroic dose. One heroic dose. Right. That's it.
Right.
Okay.
It's beautiful. I think that there's something called set and setting. So you should be aware of where you are. You know, you should make sure that you don't have anybody coming to bother you. If you have kids, maybe you have a weekend alone with somebody you love. There's someone there in case you got really weirded out like that. You know, because strange things can happen, or sometimes we are our own worst enemy. And these things we've been pressing down for a long time, those things will come up. And you start thinking about them. Right. You know, it's a weird dichotomy that in the world of psychedelics, they often talk about retreats. I think they should call them confrontations, because that's what happens when you're under a really large dose of psychedelics, is that there's nowhere to run. Where are you going to run to, man? It's right. It's all in here, you know, and it's tragic, but it's also magic. It's tragic in that you can't run away from it, but it's magic in that you get to see it in a way you haven't seen before. It's like looking under the bed and saying, there's a monster down there, and being like, oh yeah, it's just me.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because I've heard people talk about experiences with ayahuasca and psychedelic experiences where they intentionally gone in for healing experience, and have encountered their younger selves and fixed a problem that they dealt with. You know, I had Tanya on the show, who's Cody's wife, and she told a story of being led to this little girl underneath a piano who was afraid to go to the bathroom, so she was holding it in under the piano, and that was her, and it caused her a lot of issues later in life with her digestive system and all of this stuff. And she was able to heal that trauma by addressing that little child, which was her, and saying, it's okay, come to the bathroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just such an amazing story. I love hearing those kinds of stories. You know, you mentioned, I'm going to change the track a little bit here. You mentioned that when your son died, you know, it was a tragedy, and that when you started doing mushrooms, you were able to kind of rebuild this relationship with him, that it sounds like you have even today, right? Can you tell me about that? Like, how has that been rebuilt? What's the connection feel like?
Yeah. So, you know, it's not uncommon for people to grow apart when they lose something they love. You know, it's when something you love dies, a part of you dies. Now imagine being in a relationship with someone you love and the thing you created together dies. There's a real chance your relationship dies there. There's a real chance one of you no longer wants to live. Happens all the time. And so for me, that's how I felt. You know, I was like, I don't even know if I really want to be here anymore, man. Like, what the fuck am I doing here? What's the purpose of all of this? Why? How? And then you get into these ideas of, just like you said earlier in the question, why me? Fuck you, God. What the fuck you? Why me? Why do I deserve that? You know, you go deep into those holes. Sometimes people don't come out of those holes. And I remember being just buried in there and thinking like, there's no fucking point, man. You know, and it's dark down there, but there's always a light. And for me, psychedelics help me make sense of the why me question. And I think it does for people, because losing somebody you love is, I mean, it may not be the same PTSD that somebody goes to war and watches their best friend get murdered. You know, it may not be that same thing, but
Right.
it's a similar form of that.
Sure.
And so I think that for me, psychedelics allowed me to just stop having this negative feedback loop. And that's so much of what happens in our lives today, is that we get caught in this negative feedback loop, whether it's somebody you lost, whether it's a circumstance that you couldn't change in any way, shape, or form, no matter how hard you tried. But your mind is, you ask a dumb question, what do you get? You get a dumb answer. And we think about it like this. This is the way I like to think about it, Michael. And this is what I began thinking when I was on psychedelics. Think about a record. And the needle goes in that record and it just plays that same groove all the time. Same song. Or here's another one for you. Like, let's say you go skiing or snowboarding and you get up to the top of the mountain at like, I don't know, noon, and the tracks are already cut down there, right? You could try to make a fresh track, but it's all hard and icy. You should go down that same track. It's already cut.
Right.
But if you and I go skiing and we stay the night and we're the first person up on the lift, we get to make fresh tracks. You know what I mean? You cut your own way down there.
Yeah.
That's what psychedelics do. They allow you to cut a new path in the way you think.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, and you get away from that icy groove that's hard and brittle, and you fall, you're going to crack yourself. And it's the same path every day, and it's boring, and it sucks, and it leads to the same spot. That's the way we think. Psychedelics allow for a different framework. They allow you to have fresh tracks in your thought process, no matter what it is you're thinking about. They can be used that way to not only help you see the world different, but optimize the world you want to live in. They can help you create a pathway to an authentic self that was under the piano. That's what it does.
Right. No, I love that. And I want to say hi to Fun Mommy, who's out there. And she said, darn, I missed the beginning of the show. You could always go back and watch the replay. George is an amazing energy that I love having on the show. So for me, I don't know why. I mean, again, psychedelics is super intriguing to me. And I did get my hands on some mushrooms, right? And I was kind of like, should I take a big dose? Should I do a trip? And I'm like, I know I would benefit from it. I know I would, right?
Yeah.
But I'm a little scared. So then I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna try to microdose. And I didn't really know much about it. So I would like pull off a little piece of a cap in the morning, or a small cap, right? And I would take the cap, and I definitely noticed it was just a couple of days that I did it, but I definitely noticed it was a mood enhancer. I definitely was like, I'm feeling good today. I don't know why. I don't care why.
Yeah,
I just am, and that's great. And I got to be honest, I'm a little afraid of that in a way of like dependency. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to I guess everybody's got their thing. You know what I mean? I smoke some weed, blah blah blah.
Sure.
But like, I just felt like almost ashamed or like a fear of having to wake up and take mushrooms every day. You know what I mean? Just to feel good.
Yeah.
And I know that, again, and I know you probably share this belief, like it's not like you need it. It's just like a little quick shortcut, right? You know what I mean? Like you can attain those states of mind through other means, like you said, breathing, and especially now today, I know my girlfriend just did a breathing workshop where it's like breath work. It's not just breathing. It's actually specific breath work where they're putting pressure on you and making you breathe in certain ways. And I've seen it. I haven't experienced it. And it seems like it's very deep, like it seems like it evokes some emotion. And people really kind of heal through it I don't even want to say a similar way, because it's a specific experience that doesn't necessarily seem anything like having a psychedelic experience, but the result seems the same is what I guess I'm saying. You come out of it and you're like, wow, I just experienced this, right? Yeah.
So I would say to that, if I was going to speak to that moment, I would say that a microdose is sort of like, it's sort of like it's sort of like a sunburn in that it stays with you for a little bit, but it's gone. Like a really mild sunburn. Like, let's say, it kind of stings for a day.
Right.
A large dose is more like a day at the spa. It's something you'll remember. It's something that will stay with you. It'll be a trip to Disneyland, and it's a bigger dose because it's really changing the way you see the world. And the larger doses, those are the ones that really have the effects that will stick with you. Like it'll stick to your ribs. You know what I mean by that? A microdose it'll make you a little happy for a day, and it'll make the colors brighter. And there's nothing wrong with microdosing, but I'm a really big advocate for finding a comfortable spot. And I always say this to people: if you do a dose and you don't say afterwards, "Holy shit, I ate too much. This is a huge problem. I think I'm going to die." If you don't say that, then you didn't take enough. Like,
all right.
Yes,
so
it's scary. I agree.
Yes.
It's scary, but you should confront it because it's something that you should be afraid of. That just means you have respect for it. You're going to be fine. You're not going to see aliens. You're not going to see green men, but you are going to see yourself differently. And I think that is what at the root people are afraid of. I'm afraid to see my life differently because you might see that you've been making some mistakes. And I think that is the underlying fear that people have. When you dive down to the root of it, people are afraid to see themselves differently, but you don't have to be. You're a beautiful person. And if you take a giant dose of mushrooms, it's going to show you something you need to see. You know, and it's friendly. It's not something that's, while it's the unknown, uncertainty is scary. But I have found in my relationship that while at times the sensory overload is magnificent, the only real fear of death is death by astonishment. Oh.
And how bad could that be, right?
Yes, it's revealing. And what's revealed to you is this idea that information is all around you. If I can share with you this realization that I have had recently, it's that, you know, our whole life, we go to school, our whole life, like we're taught to live in a world and fit in. But in doing so, the authenticity of us is like, it's molded down and shaped. Oh, this person's a little bit too pretty. This person's a little too smart. This person's a little too this. And we're shaved down and we're put in these plastic molds that fit nicely in a society and all the gears fit great. And that works really well for society and culture. But culture's not your friend. Culture is a machine that wipes you down and puts you through the song Pink Floyd, Welcome to the Machine. Like that's what culture does. It just makes you into this beautiful little, cardboard cutout of these little tacky boxes, but you're so much more than that. And you don't even understand how many gifts you have. You don't understand, why is it that when someone looks at you and they provide that little smile to you, like maybe don't you want to see what other people see in you? You should, because you're worth it. And the sooner you begin to take the courage or have the courage to see yourself the way others see you, man, it's a gift you won't want to give up. And you don't need to repeat it. You won't ever feel the need to do it every day, but you will maybe be called to do it once a year, maybe once every 5 years. There's people that say, hey, George, DMT is my favorite drug. When did you do it last? 30 years ago. Once might be enough for you, but I highly recommend if you find yourself curious about it, maybe it's because it's calling to you. Right. Maybe there's something calling to you. Maybe it's your authentic self. Maybe it's a little girl under the piano. Maybe it's a man that lost his son. Maybe it's someone who's striving for love in a relationship. Maybe it's love calling to you, man. But answer the call, man.
I love it. Awesome. Excellent. Oh my God, you're so much fun to talk to, George.
It takes one to know one, man. Thank you.
So I want to learn a little bit about you. All right.
Okay.
So one thing I will say is that I mentioned Hawaii. I did visit Hawaii in 2000, and I was definitely taken by it. It was a very spiritual experience. I viewed it as, and I think we talked about this, I viewed it as the Garden of Eden, because we hiked through Kilauea, which is that still erupting, by the way, Kilauea?
At times, like there's times when you can walk through the park, and then there's times where the lava flows all the way to the ocean, and you can see the smoke plumes, and it's living, right? It's a living, breathing planet right here.
And that was the experience. So for folks who don't know and haven't been there, we hiked in the Kilauea crater, which is like being on the moon. It's like, it looks so bleak and it's just rock, and it's like it feels like a different planet. And then you get to experience the lava, like you said, that's going into the ocean, and that's actually becoming new land mass, becoming new landform. And that bleak rock that you're looking at is so rich in minerals that in a short amount of time it becomes a lush forest. It's no longer a bleak rock. And that to me totally just represented the Garden of Eden. I was just like, this is life itself happening, and the earth, just this is where the earth comes from, right? You know, this is how it is. So it was a beautiful experience. How did you end up in Hawaii? Did you do psychedelics before, after? How long have you been there? Tell me the Hawaii connection.
So I was a UPS driver for like 26 years, and I started off in San Diego, and much like young men in their 20s do, I spent all my money on strippers and drugs, and then the rest I just spent foolishly. So, you know, I found myself in a position where I wasn't doing anything with my life. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids, and an opportunity came up for me to transfer and have a job and go to Hawaii. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I put my name on a transfer list. And I think I was 27 at the time, maybe 28. And I had put my name on a transfer list in like February. And come October that same year, I was out on my route and my boss called me up and said, George, I got to see you in the office when you come back. I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong? I'm trying to figure out if I'm in trouble. So I get back to the office and he shows me this slip of paper, you know, and we sit at the desk and I go in his office and he slides this piece of paper across to me. And I'm like, what's this? And he's like, oh, your transfer for Hawaii. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I did that. And he's ready to slide it back. And he's like, yeah, no one ever goes. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go. And he puts his hand on the paper. What? I go, yeah, I'm going to go. He goes, no, I don't think you get it, George. You signed that piece of paper. You're out of here like in 2 weeks, man. I'm like, I know, I'm going to go. He's like, no. I don't think you understand, George. Do you know anybody there? Have you ever been there? I'm like, nope. And he's like, man, what do you do with all your stuff? I'm like, I'll just sell it all. He just looked at me just like that, like,
I love it. That's amazing. I love it.
And he's like, okay, you're a grown man. What you got to do, man? Sounds awesome, actually. You know, but I could just see this look of it, like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How can anyone think it doesn't sound awesome? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so here's the rub, though. It was on a Tuesday. I remember because I went to Taco Tuesday that night with my parents, and I sat down and I said, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going to Hawaii. No, you're not. Have a beer, George. Well, I'll have a beer, but I'm still going to Hawaii. And they gave me the where are you going to live? How are you going to get around? You know anybody there? And I'm like, nope.
I got a job. That's all I need, right?
That's it. And it was so monumentous. Like I sold everything I had, you know,
That's cool.
I had like a 1976 Cadillac Eldorado, you know, I thought I was all cool guy, and I had a Volkswagen Bug, and I was renting a place by the water, and like I had all these things. I had probably 30 pairs of shoes, all of them brand new, you know, and I just sold. I remember I took everything down to this place by my house, and I gave all my stuff away. And then as the time was coming out, my sister was going to take over my place, and I'm like, this is so awesome, man. But you know, as I began getting rid of things, I began finding more of myself. And I was like, got rid of my car, got rid of my shoes, got rid of my place. And then I realized all I had after everything was gone was 2 black bags and $1,000. And I jump on the plane. I'm at the airport. I'm taking shots of tequila like, woo, it's going to be epic. And I did. I had some shots on the plane. And when I landed in Hawaii, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't know where I am. I have no place to live. I have $1,000. No one knows where I am. I don't even know where am I going to go? I'm at the airport. I can't even rent a car. I didn't have a credit card. You know, and I was like, I made a big mistake. I started crying. You know, not like sobbing, but tears. Right. You know what I mean? And I was like,
you're like, oh,
you know, it just really hit me like, oh my God, what have I done? This is what everybody was talking about. What am I doing? And so I remember I must have sat there it felt like 5 hours, but it's probably like 2 hours. And I remember, okay, well, I guess I'll go get one of these shuttles to Waikiki. And I remember I got on the shuttle and some guy said, hey man, where are you going? And I'm like, I need a cheap place to stay. He's like, oh, I got a perfect spot for you, man. And I went to this back on Kuhio Drive. For those that know, Honolulu was one of the back streets. And he dropped me off at this place. And it was like, you know, $50-$60 a night. And I, you know, on some level, like I really felt that weight, that pull of despair. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But on another level, I've never felt so alive in my life. Yeah. I'm looking out at this tropical weather, and there's these beautiful people walking around, and the sun is warm, and the waves are pounding up onto the shore. And I'm like, this is magnificent. I feel like I'm in the Garden of Eden.
The energy there is amazing. Yeah, for sure.
Unbelievable, man. I bought a moped. I found a room to rent, and I started working. And next thing you know,
so sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
but you went
no.
there, knowing you had to report to work
Yeah,
a couple of days, right? Like you gave yourself a day or two to find a place to live, I'm imagining, or
I had a week. I
Okay.
got here and I went and automatically met with my new work. I found out where I took the bus over there. Hey, I'm your new guy. I'll be to work in like a couple of days. And they're like, okay, perfect. Take a few days and then get settled in and show up to work.
Right.
That's what I did. And
what
it's
a
like
great
a muscle.
job. Yeah, what a great job to learn the streets and learn the city.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that was your assignment. Your first assignment was to learn the map, right?
And in a weird sort of way, I think that's everybody's assignment. Like our assignment in life is to learn the territory and get comfortable with it. And then you begin to understand you can go anywhere in the world as long as you don't limit yourself. And it's hard because sometimes we get so caught up in these patterns of who we are, these patterns of where we live, these patterns of who people think we are. You're a brother, you're a son, you're all these things, but don't let other people's patterns define who you are. Right. Feel free to move about the cabin. You know what I mean?
Totally. And you just reminded me of what it was that you said earlier that I forgot. And it was, you talked about, you mentioned the word that existence was a fractal.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you just described. You just described that moment in Hawaii was just a fractal of, you said everybody's got to kind of learn the territory, right? It's just a microcosm situation of the bigger situation of learning the territory, which is this earth existence, right? In a bigger picture.
And I think that's what psychedelics do. They allow you to see the microcosm and the macrocosm. And once you begin seeing it, you see it everywhere. In Hawaii, like there's this beautiful mountaintops, right? Like if you look at this map, you'll always see it as a volcano. But the next time you see a map of Hawaii, look at the coastlines, because the coastlines echo the mountain edges. It's fractal, this because of this. And once you see those patterns on a large scale, it makes it easier to see those patterns in your life. And when you see those patterns in your life, it makes it much easier to get through the tough times. It makes it easier to walk through the valleys when you know you're going to be coming up on a foothill. It makes it easier to understand that this thing you're going through, you've done it before and you've always made it through. Yeah, it might be a little bit taller of a hill. It might be a deeper valley. But if you just take a moment to look back at the patterns, not only in your life, but in your garden, take a look at the patterns in your family. Because the fractal nature of the mountaintops and the coastline is the same pattern in generational trauma. The same reason that your grandmother is scared of snakes is the same reason you're afraid of snakes. In fact, the reason your grandma is afraid of snakes may be the reason you're having relationship problems with your husband. If you just take time to really think about it. And I hearken back to the idea of psychedelics because I really think that this idea of psychedelics gets you to understand that you're not unique to the planet. Like you don't come into this world, you come out of it. You're part of it. I am as much a part of Michael Zen as Michael Zen is a part of me. This conversation we're having could easily flow through any one of us. And it is. And it's flowing through Fun Mom and Tim Lorenz and everybody that's here in this chat right now, whether you're Leela, Ninja, Kitty, or whether you're Tim, or whether you're anybody, like you're part of this conversation. You're part of this group where we're all learning together and we're all sharing this experience. And if we understand that, it just, this idea of fractals, I hope everybody can take a moment just to look at it and start looking for the fractal nature in your world. And it will help illuminate a path forward or help you illuminate a path backwards and help you work through trauma. It's magical.
Totally is. And I don't know, have you, you know what, I forgot, I'm going to put this up even though now we're coming up on an hour. I'm going to put up your website if you are intrigued by George and his amazing energy. Here's where you can see his podcast and more of what he's
that
doing.
site might be bad. I might that one might be the old one right there. I think I gave you the one. You could check out my my link tree. That was probably the best one. But I could put it in the show notes.
Yeah, there you go. Put it in. Did you put it in there? Where'd you put it?
I could put it in there later.
Oh, I just saw a comment from Ninja Kitty said she agrees. I saw that pop up. I thought that was you. All right, so let me pull that banner down. I did want before I start wrapping up, and we're definitely going to have you back because you're so much fun. Tell me about the map behind you. What's the significance of the map behind you?
Okay, so I love maps. And I think we make them, whether they're mental maps or whether they're geography maps. And isn't it interesting the way I put this map up? Sometimes when I look at that map, I'm like, why did I separate Russia? How come I didn't make Europe one continent? It's such a United States thing to do, is to put up a flat map and then make us the center of it. But I think it speaks volumes of what we do with our own mental constructs, right? Like, of course we're the center of the world, man. I'm gonna put Hawaii right in the middle.
That's an American map, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so here's another thing to think about if we continue with the idea of our fractal nature.
Yeah.
When we, and it ties to the idea of the map, on a map like this or on a globe, you'll see all these supply chains everywhere, right? Like you'll see like the boat goes to Hawaii, then it goes to Anchorage, and then it comes down to California. And those are the supply chains that move the nutrients and riches, and it moves all the things through the world. The same way that blood flows through our system and our body, so too do supply chains move through the planet like that. Right. And I've been having this weird idea that if you think about a globe and the way the supply chains run on a globe, I think that's the same way we make neural connections in our mind. And if that's true, why, we can learn the supply chains on the globe are just a manifestation of the thoughts in our mind. And it just goes back to the idea, whatever you build in your life is a manifestation of what's happening inside of you. I think that is one reason why I have this map up. Whenever I look at these maps, I have it up so my daughter can learn geography. I have it up so I can learn where I am. I have it up because it helps center me. I have it up because I love the idea of time zones and how abstract this notion of time is. And maps are a great way for us to see the world, to see ourselves in it. And, I got this theory about Atlantis. That's why I drew it on the map over there, but yeah, I don't know. I love maps. I think that they're a great way to see the world.
That's cool. I think for me, part of my challenge in these conversations and these thoughts that I love to have is kind of the balance between the metaphysical and the physical, right? Like, okay, I believe all of these things that are way bigger than me and probably way cooler, than going to work and the mundane feeling of the 3D. But I love the balance that you have. You're really grounded to that fascinates you. Like, I wish I had that passion about this place, and be like, I love this map, and I do, because you do, because I can feel that reflection in you. That statement, I love that statement. I love that feeling. And I also want people to understand that goes, it's not just like you see someone out there and you're like, and you admire them, or you think they're a good person. You're like, oh, I could see that in myself. It's also the people who you don't like. And you see someone out there doing something and you're like, oh yeah, I don't know what it is, but I relate to that. And I feel like I'm seeing myself. And you got to kind of figure those things out,
that's really well said.
So I'm just gonna, just for a minute, just because we're friends and we're getting to know each other. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the stuff that I do as far as my artwork goes, but I do photography. So one of my things is photography. And one of the things I started doing was I saw an artist using a projector as a light source. So I'll use a projector. Whoa. And I'll shine images on my models or whatever and take the pictures that way. And sometimes they're very straightforward like this. But something in one day I was working with a particular image, and this is where I get excited, and I feel like what happened was channeled, right? Like the artwork was talking to me and it said, okay, this image is beautiful, but what would happen if you flipped it over and made a mirror image of it, right? And then flipped it over again. And so I started doing what I call human dollars.
Yeah, those are so epic.
So I have never really been a fan of mandalas. I always thought mandalas were just kind of geometry, spirograph, like they didn't take a lot of skill. I didn't see the value. They weren't appealing to me. But when I did this, all of a sudden I made that connection to the fractal, to the pattern, to the idea of the mandala. This one felt like it had a little more three-dimensionality to it.
It does.
So I felt like, oh, wait a second, I can relate to this. So I started doing a bunch of human dollars, and this is kind of the most recent I guess things that I've been doing, and sometimes you can't even see the human in it, but I just think they make some really cool, fascinating images.
I've never heard that. I think you've coined that term, Michael. I've never heard it before. It's a beautiful creation, man.
Thank you. I thought that I did. This is
it's
like
epic.
a tree of life on a girl doing a meditation pose, and it's just so much fun to do and explore. Whoop, I lost that one. Hold on, I wanted to go back to that one. So yeah, I'm huge on play on words, as my website is photosynthesis, all of these things. And I made that term, and then I went to go use that on Instagram, and there is a guy called Human Dollars, and he calls it Humandalas. He gives it a different accent, and he's also in Hawaii, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And what he does is he takes a group of people, and he has them all like join hands, like, and then create like a mandala, a physical mandala with a group of people. And it's pretty cool. It's a healing thing. It's related to my journey in a way. We became friends. I speak to him every once in a while on Instagram. But yeah, it was just something that I thought you might appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm gonna check out more of them.
Yeah.
But how did that come about? Like, was there something that spoke to you that like gave you that idea? You said that you felt like you were being channeled. Like, how did that idea come about?
So let me see if I could find the original image somewhere. Hold on a second. It was just the image that I was looking at, the way the model was posed. Again, in my mind, I just thought, oh, this would kind of look cool flipped. I mean, it seems like a simple thought. It does seem like a simple thought, but it didn't stop there. I was like, oh, this is cool. What if I flip it the other way now? And I had 4, and then I was like, what if I take that and duplicate it and just offset it? And then I had 8, and it just evolved, but it felt channeled. You know what I mean? It just literally did feel channeled. I don't see that image alone. Let me just
imagine if you would have never listened to that voice. Like, isn't it a beautiful understanding to have that relationship with creativity? And like,
absolutely.
Like how rewarding did that feel? Like, look what you made because you listened to what you had to say. Like, if everybody could begin to listen to that inner voice, man, like, I think we could make some really cool stuff. Like, that's beautiful, man. That is original. It's authentic, and it's something that you created with being authentic, man. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's evolved many ways. What's also kind of cool is, and I think it may come back, it's always kind of there on the table. Oh, Grace Grell is out there. What's up, Grace? She's saying great show. Good to see her. What's cool is I was able to actually take it on the road. So I did like a vendor booth at a place, and I borrowed this 8x8 cube that I can put fabric around, and it makes a big dark black room. Kind of. So I was able to take a projector into that room, shine it on somebody on site, come into the booth, I shine it on them, I shot the picture, and then I had a little dye sub printer, and they could actually leave with a print, an original human dollar print. And I do think, again, I feel like an iceberg, my friend. I feel like I've really only shown the tip of my capabilities, and I'm working them. And as far as life goes in general, I think the pursuit of money was not something that was important to me ever. And I think, at this age, it's like, oh, wow, I haven't been able to travel for a few years, and I used to travel, and I loved it. Obviously, I went to Hawaii and Aruba and all these great places. And I think I lost sight of certain things with my relationship with money. So I'm learning new things. But I think, fortunately for me, I look back and I feel like, oh, you created this, and that's still there, and you can use that. So I was just talking to Jesse about the Women of Armageddon, which is the calendar that I did. And like, I've only released that really kind of locally, and I could actually take that content and create something bigger and go on Kickstarter, which Jesse has discovered this world of. Jesse is a comic book writer, and he has a lot of very, very prominent comic book artists that he's friends with that work for Marvel and work for these companies. And so there's some good things coming. I'm very excited about recycling some of things that are from me, you know what I mean, taking my own
Yeah.
creations and now, you know, using them again and giving them new life, and kind of, you know, and having them return to me that the idea that I created them. I don't know what I'm saying.
No, it's beautiful. Like the idea that you can have something develop inside of you and then give it to other people for them to enjoy. Like that's why we're here. You know, we get scared, man. I get scared all the time. Like in my life, like sometimes I'm like, oh man, how am I gonna? These bills are stacking up, or oh my god, what about this happens? What if someone gets hurt? You know, like. But it's that type of limiting belief. Like, yes, we have to be responsible. We should all take care of our family first. But that being said, never let that spark of creativity go completely dark. Like, look at what you're meaning. Like, those things are beautiful. And you're right. There's whatever you think about, you feed. Like, why you should be all over Kickstarter. You should be traveling to Hawaii to do the calendar for the Hawaiian girls. You should have one every month. You should have 5 different sites, and you could begin all of that with a stroke of a pen. You could begin all of that on Instagram. You could begin all of that by reaching out to people. And everybody, if you feed the positive feedback loop, you are your thoughts. You will become what you think about most. You are the conglomeration of the 5 people you spend the most time with, whether they're imaginary or not. Think good thoughts, man. There's miracles waiting to happen for you. The world will conspire to make your life better if you're willing to believe it, even when no one else does.
And with that, I don't even have to ask you to share some words of wisdom with my audience, because you just already did it. That's so amazing, George. I love it. I'm just going to share this. I just found it.
Please, man.
It's not the original image, but this was, again, just an idea. And again, I feel like I've only poked the tip of my potential out of the ocean. And these are some of the things. So I did a photo with a couple here. So this is the photo with the projection on it. Let me see if I could zoom in. Okay, so there it is. And then I made a human dollar with that photo. And then I made that photo into obviously a print, but also a little amulet that she could wear. And it's just, again, I was just like, did I come up with that? Did I do this? Like this really comes from me. You know, it's amazing to take a step back and be like, that took no effort on my part. Like that just happened. You know what I mean? Like as far as the creative part of it, I was like, oh, a couple, let me do a couple. And this all just kind of naturally came out.
Wait.
Yes,
wait.
Sir. I'm waiting.
Okay, think about this. Imagine a little girl gets that amulet from her dad at the age of 9. And that amulet becomes a symbol of the love that her family has. It becomes a family heirloom. This thing that you created that took you nothing to do, you say, all of a sudden becomes a momentous object of symbology for a family forever.
I love that.
You know what I mean? Like that's it, man. Like that, and that's how we're all connected. Like this thing you think you're doing that may not be significant. Nothing could be further from the truth. Everything you do is significant. And when you care about something, like I can tell with the amount of work and love you put into what you're doing. Like I can see it on the smile on your face. I can see it in the comments over here with like, nothing's cooler than Michael Zen, man. Like they're right. They're right, man. There's nothing cooler than what you're doing to make things better, man. In fact, there's nothing cooler than Tim. There's nothing cooler than Grace. There's nothing cooler than Lily.
I agree.
All of us, man.
I agree 1,000,000%. And I feel that, and I tell them all the time that same thing. And imagine if all of us could be like you and me, and we will all just tell everyone how great they are. And,
yes, we're doing it right now. The world's getting better every day.
You guys are amazing. We love you so much. Oh, George, you're the best. I'm just wrapping this up because traditionally I do an hour. I know that we did 2 hours the other night and we could probably continue going. So I'll just say to be continued, George. I'm looking forward to really getting to know you some more and collaborating on whatever it might be that we collaborate on.
All of it, man. All of it. And you'll be on my show soon too, I hope.
Also, absolutely, 1,000,000%.
Okay.
We'll see you soon. I'm going to put you in the back. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you so much. Aloha, everybody. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Oh, Mom's out there saying she loves that smile. Thank you for giving me that smile, Mom. Comes from you. I love when you visit the live stream of consciousness. Thank you for being here. And George, I will see you soon. I've got to do my traditional breathing out and just enjoying the moment that I just intentionally created. I'm so happy about that. It's just something awesome. And Tim is saying boa noite, which is, I'm imagining Brazilian. What is it? Portuguese for good night. Ninja Kitty, another amazing show. Ninja, thank you so much for being here always. Since the beginning, I can always count on you for just being there, so that I know that I'm not talking to nobody. So I love it. I love that you're there. Next week, I actually have the Q for You guys on the show. So Q for You guys, if you showed up or you're watching the replay, be ready for the live stream of consciousness next week, and you guys will meet them. And then some exciting stuff after that. I don't know what it is. We'll see where the world takes us. I will see you folks next week. Peace.
What is consciousness? The live stream of consciousness is on a quest to unravel the mysteries of existence. Every episode, we ask the fundamental question that has captivated human minds for centuries. Is consciousness merely a product of our brains, or does it connect us to something greater? Explore the very fabric of our thoughts. Don't miss a moment. Expand your awareness.